There's a smell that stops time, not slows it, stops it completely. You're walking through a street, or sitting near a window, or perhaps lying half asleep in the early hours of a summer morning, and then suddenly it arrives. That wave of sweetness, heavy and soft and ancient all at once, and for a moment you forget everything else. That is Mogra. That is Jasminum Sambac. And if you have ever felt that feeling, if you have ever stood still because of a flower, then what I am about to tell you will change the way you look at your garden forever. Because most people believe that Mogra is difficult. Most people believe it is a plant that must be purchased, that must be found at a nursery, that requires some special knowledge or some expensive treatment to survive. Most people have no idea that inside every healthy Mogra plant, there are dozens of new plants waiting to be born, hiding inside the stems themselves, invisible, patient, ready. And the only thing standing between you and a garden full of Mogra is a simple cut, a little bit of soil, and an understanding of what this plant actually needs. Let us start with what is really happening when a cutting takes root, because this is where most people go wrong. They treat it like a magic trick when it is actually biology. And once you understand the biology, you stop making the mistakes that kill cuttings before they ever get a chance. Every Mogra stem, even a small one, carries within its tissue something called meristematic cells. These are cells that have not yet decided what they want to become. They are raw, undifferentiated, full of potential. And when you make a clean cut on a stem and place it in the right environment, these cells receive a signal. The plant's chemistry shifts, the wound triggers a response, and those uncommitted cells begin their transformation. They start building root. Primordia, tiny root beginnings, and within days, those primordia push outward through the cut end and begin reaching into whatever medium surrounds them. This is not luck. This is not mystery. This is a plant doing exactly what it was designed to do when it senses it has been separated from its parent. It is trying to survive, and your only job is to give it the right conditions to do that. Now the selection of the cutting. This matters more than almost anything else, and it is the step that most beginners completely underestimate. You cannot walk up to a Mogra plant, snap off any branch, and expect results. The branch you choose carries the entire future of what you are trying to grow. What you want is a stem that is semi-hardwood, not the brand new, bright green growth at the very tip of the plant, and not the old, woody, bark-covered base either. You want the middle ground. You want a stem that started growing perhaps 6 to 10 weeks ago, a stem that has begun to firm up, but still has some flexibility to it, a stem that is neither too young nor too old. If you bend it gently and it snaps cleanly, that is a good sign. If it bends and does not break, it is too young. If it feels stiff like a twig and is difficult to cut cleanly, it may be too mature for the best results. The length of your cutting should be somewhere between 4 and 6 inches. Long enough to have at least 3 or 4 nodes on it, which are those small raised points along the stem where leaves emerge, but short enough that the cutting does not waste its limited energy supply trying to sustain too much above-ground growth before roots have formed. Each node is a potential root site. Each node holds within it those meristematic cells ready to shift direction and become roots if the conditions are right. So when you look at a cutting, you are not looking at a piece of a plant, you are looking at a cluster of possibilities arranged along a green stem. The cut itself must be made with something sharp. This sounds simple, but people consistently underestimate it. A dull knife, a torn stem, scissors that crush rather than cut. All of these damage the cell walls at the cutting's base in ways that invite rot and disease before roots ever have a chance to form. Use a sharp blade. Make the cut at a slight angle, about 45 degrees, just below a node. The angle increases the surface area of the cut end, which means more cells are exposed, which means a better chance of rapid root formation. Once you have made the cut, immediately remove all leaves from the lower half of the stem. These lower leaves serve no purpose once the cutting is separated from the parent plant. They only create transpiration loss, pulling water through the cutting when there are no roots yet to replace that moisture. Keep only the top 2 or 3 leaves. If those remaining leaves are very large, cut them in half. You want just enough leaf surface to keep photosynthesis happening, but not so much that the cutting dries itself out. Here is where the rooting hormone conversation begins, and here is where I will tell you something that surprises many gardeners. Mogra is genuinely one of the easier plants to root without any hormone treatment at all. The plant's natural chemistry is inclined toward regeneration. However, and this is important, if you want to increase your success rate, if you want to root not just one cutting but many cuttings reliably, if you want faster results and stronger initial root systems, then a rooting hormone is worth using. The active ingredient in most rooting hormones is IBA, indole 3-butyric acid, which mimics and amplifies the plant's own natural rooting signals. You can find this in powder form, in liquid form, and in gel form. For Mogra cuttings, a light application of powder is perfectly sufficient. Dip the cut end into the powder, tap off any excess. You want a thin coat, not a thick clump, and proceed. If you do not have rooting hormone and do not wish to buy any, you can also use the end of an aloe vera leaf, cut fresh, applying the gel directly to the cut end of the cutting. Aloe contains natural plant growth compounds and has been shown in multiple studies to support root development in vegetative cuttings. It is not as concentrated as commercial IBA, but it is far better than nothing. And if you have an aloe plant growing nearby, it costs you nothing at all. The growing medium is your next critical decision. Mogra cuttings have one requirement that overrides almost all others. The medium must drain freely. Roots in development need oxygen as much as they need moisture. A medium that holds too much water creates an anaerobic environment around the cutting's base, and anaerobic environments are where rot lives. A 50-50 mix of coarse river sand and perlite is excellent. Cocoa peat mixed with perlite works very well. You can also use perlite alone, which is increasingly popular among propagators because it holds moisture while maintaining excellent airflow through its structure. What you should avoid is regular garden soil used alone. It compacts, holds water, and suffocates developing roots. What you should avoid even more strongly is any potting mix that is heavy or dark or that clumps together when wet. Think light, think airy, think drainage above all. Fill a small pot with your chosen medium, not a large pot, because a large pot holds more moisture than the developing cutting can handle, and that excess moisture again becomes a rot risk. A 4-inch pot is ideal for a single cutting, or you can use a slightly larger pot if you are rooting multiple cuttings together. Make a small hole in the center of the medium with a pencil or stick, and gently insert your prepared cutting so that at least 2 nodes are below the surface. Firm the medium lightly around the stem. You want it to hold the cutting upright without crushing or compressing the medium so tightly that airflow is eliminated. Water gently until moisture begins to drain from the bottom of the pot. This first watering settles the medium around the cutting and establishes the moisture level you want. From this point forward, your goal is to keep the medium consistently moist, but never wet. Lift the pot. When it feels light, it needs water. When it has weight to it, wait. This simple technique, checking by weight rather than by schedule, will serve you far better than any calendar-based watering routine. Now place your cutting somewhere warm and bright, but protected from direct midday sun. Direct sun at this stage is a serious threat. It accelerates moisture loss through the leaves at a time when the cutting has no roots to replace that moisture. You want bright, indirect light. A spot that receives morning sun and afternoon shade is nearly perfect. The temperature matters too. Mogra roots most enthusiastically when temperatures stay between 25 and 35 degrees Celsius. Below 20 degrees, the process slows dramatically. Above 40, the cutting faces heat stress before it has the resilience to cope with it. This is why late spring and early summer are the traditional seasons for Mogra propagation in the subcontinent. The temperatures are exactly right, the days are long, and the plant's own biology is already geared toward growth. Humidity is your silent ally during rooting. The higher the humidity around the cutting, the less moisture it loses through its leaves, and the less stress it experiences while it is building its root system. You can create a simple humidity tent by placing a clear plastic bag loosely over the cutting and pot. Not sealed tight, leave a little gap at the bottom for airflow. Or by cutting the bottom off a large plastic water bottle and placing it over the pot like a dome. Check your cutting every few days. If condensation builds up heavily inside the cover, lift it for an hour to let fresh air circulate, then replace it. This prevents the fungal diseases that humidity can otherwise encourage.